Yeah, with the help of American Airlines.
Got enough cash with you to buy your ticket?
About that, I'll know right after the next race.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the Simon Says Sports Betting Show. I'm your host, Eric Simon, and this is the show where we talk about sports, but from a betting perspective. And there's some good bets today. A couple at Aqueduct Racecourse, and then also in the NCAA Basketball Tournament tonight. I'm going to start with the races because post time is 1:50. I'm recording this at 12:30. And the first two races at Aqueduct, to me, look really, really interesting. So I'm going to start off with the first race, and I want to pay special attention to Melting Snow. That's the number one horse. Now, this horse is 1-2 on the morning line, and there's some very interesting things to note. First of all, she's been claimed in 6 of her last 7 starts. And even more telling is her lowest speed figure in her last 3 races is higher than the best speed figure of any other horse in the field in their last 3 races. Now, that is a factor that, according to my database of nearly 83,000 races, wins about 75% of the time. Believe it or not, it does produce a small loss, about a 1% loss. But that's because these horses are typically, like Melting Snow, a huge favorite. The betting in this race is interesting because I'm not going to come on this show and tell you about how great a 1-2 favorite is. That, to me, is just the height of idiocy. Obviously, it's a good horse, and this is probably a better horse than the typical 1-2 morning line favorite. But there are some things to be aware of. First of all, Melting Snow has been off now for 57 days. Most of her previous races were spaced pretty close together. And also, I mentioned how often she's been claimed. She was claimed in her last race by a guy by the name of Charlton Baker. He's a very, very good trainer, 21% career win rate. But you never know when horses are claimed by new trainers and they're in new surroundings. You don't know how they're going to respond. That, coupled with the layoff, makes me think that you should probably be betting against this horse in the show pool. However, because she looks so dominant, I would probably key her in the exotics. The pace in this race sets up perfectly for Melting Snow. I want to say the race ESR is about a -9. She typically runs -8 early speed rations, and those are my own measurement of early energy disbursement. So I think she's going to be well within herself, but she really upped her game after she was claimed by Linda Rice, and she really has never come back down to earth. So there's going to come a point when she does, and it might be today, and she's 1-2 odds. In any event, I always love betting against horses in a negative show pool scenario, and especially horses with front speed, because typically when they fade, when they tire, or they can tire completely out of the money. It's a lot different than like betting against Zenyatta in the show pool, which I did, and actually probably made money over the years thanks to net pool pricing. But of course, she was always coming late. And so the best bet against in a negative show pool, in my opinion, are horses with front speed. So Melting Snow in the first race, what I would do is key her in exotics, but also bet against her in the show pool. You notice on my report, I've got Ice Reply on top. I'm not really thrilled with this horse, but I think she would be a decent one to use in the show pool. And also Quality Stones. Quality Stones is really, really interesting because the blinkers are coming off for the first time since August, and there is a noticeable difference in her ESRs. In fact, I'm going to see if I can show that to you guys. It's a notable difference in her ESRs when she didn't have blinkers on. So you see right here is when she didn't have blinkers on before, and look at those ESRs. -8 is the best, and then contrast that with when the blinkers came on, and you see some in this green area that, of course, means that it's very, very quick or very, very taxing. So with the blinkers coming off, I don't know how much front speed she's going to show. You notice she typically likes to go to the front. Excuse me, let's go to that column. Typically likes to go to the front. What might happen in this race is, despite the fact that I'm predicting a -8 ESR, you could see a much slower pace. That would give Quality Stones a huge edge in here because we don't really know what Melting Snow wants to do. If Melting Snow gets the lead, with a subpar pace, I think she's going to be really tough to beat, but she might lay off it because there is speed in this race. So anyway, it's a very intriguing race, and that's the way I would play it. I'd key Melting Snow in the exotics, and I would bet against her in the show pool. Now, the race I'm really interested in, if I can get back to my report here, is the second race. And here again, we have a big favorite in Print Track. Now, what's interesting about this horse is it was just claimed for $25,000 and now drops to $12,500. Rob Altris, the trainer, is very good with this move. He wins about 30% of the time. Negative ROI, of course, because most of the horses are very well bet. But there's some other things that I don't like, and I want to show you guys again in the past performances because I think it's very, very telling. So here are the past performances, Print Track. And again, the ESRs and LSRs, that's early speed rations, late speed rations. Those are my own measurements of early and late energy disbursement. And what's cool about this is that they're color coded. So when it's on the negative side or the poor side, it's in red. When it's positive, it's in green. And there's an inverse relationship between the ESRs and LSRs. The ESRs are better the lower they are. The LSRs are better the higher they are. And I want you to take a look at something. You'll notice in this race for $50,000 that you had a -9 ESR and a -27 LSR. -27 is really poor. -15 is poor. So -27 is incredibly poor. And then look what happened. The horse drops down to 25,000. So this is before the claim. So already you got to wonder a little bit about this horse's condition. Now, it had run at that level before, but still it's dropping significantly in class. 0 LSR, excuse me, 0 ESR, meaning a very, very slow pace. Print Track is on the lead and then winds up getting beat, finishes second. Now, normally that wouldn't be such a bad thing. And you'll notice the speed figure was sensational. But we've got to look at that in context here. Here you have a horse that set a very easy pace. And so, yeah, it ran a great speed figure, but that's what horses do. Give a horse their preferred trip, and they're typically going to run very, very fast. There's almost no shot of Print Track getting the same kind of trip today. If he wants to be up close to the pace, he's going to have to revert to these kinds of efforts. And like I said, I'm not sure about that because of the class drop. Now, normally I would look at this and say, well, you got a trainer with good numbers. It makes sense. I don't see the wisdom in dropping this horse in class outside of the fact that Rob Altris, the trainer, might know that this horse is not as good as it looks. So let's look at some of the other horses in here. First of all, you've got Bourbon Bay. Notice Bourbon Bay is also dropping in class, but here it makes sense because the horse hasn't been running very well. But it has been posting some really good ESRs, and it's dropping down to 7 furlongs. Now, I want to say the horse is 0 for 4, 0 for 5 at 7 furlongs, and didn't show speed in the one race shown in his past performances. But this is a different day against a different group of horses. This is a horse that might be able to press the pace or even get the lead. And I think Bourbon Bay would be very tough if that, in fact, were the case. Another horse that's really intriguing is Poppy's Pride. Poppy's Pride is probably going to be your front runner in here. You notice the ESRs are typically good. The E8, that is simply the Curran speed points along with the I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Sarton, excuse me, the Sarton style ratings. So this horse is an early runner. 8, that's a maximum Curran speed points. And so this horse is likely going to be on the lead. You'll notice it's run very well in its last 2 races with some pretty decent speed figures too. So I think Poppy's Pride is definitely a contender, an 8-1 on the morning line. In fact, I want to try to move some things around here, and I want to show you guys my class pace report because that one is interesting. And first of all, you'll notice the bold names here are the horses that are the top 3 fair odds. So the lowest fair odds in the field. And obviously, not surprising, Melting Snow is there, Print Track, Double Shot, Icy Storm. But if we look at the class pace or the CPR rank, it kind of changes things. First of all, you'll notice in that first race, we got Quality Stones on top on this report. Here, Print Track is on top in both of my reports, or on both of my reports. But you see Poppy's Pride is right there in second. And then you've got Bourbon Bay, who is further down here. Partly there is you have, poor form coupled with, just poor form in general. And so that certainly hurts Bourbon Bay, because a lot of these reports are very performance oriented. The class pace report looks at ESRs, LSRs, and also speed figures, kind of the big three there, which, by the way, that's something that my pace profile reports also look at, and that's something that I want to show you as well. You'll notice that both of these big favorites have big speed advantages. That's typically why you're going to be a big favorite. So that's not that surprising. That's what that plus means, the 1+ meaning a dominant speed advantage. But I want you to look at Print Track, and I want you to look at the LSRs. That's the LSR rank in this field, 5th, which is not good. Now we go back to the fact that if Print Track has to run faster early than it did last time, those LSRs could very well revert to these numbers. And notice that -27 is the worst that the horses run in 10 races, or recorded in 10 races. So Print Track, unlike Melting Snow, I think is a poor favorite, a poor 4-5 favorite. Again, when you're talking about horses that are odds on the morning line, they're going to win a lot of races. But if we can find those that maybe aren't as strong as those odds, that's what we're looking for. I mentioned Melting Snow really is. There's just a few things that I'm concerned about. Print Track, I think there are much, much deeper problems. And so Print Track, again, I would be looking to beat if there's a negative show pool. Negative show pool, by the way, about 75% of the show dollars wagered on that horse. And it can be any pool, but it's typically the show pool where you see this. So I'd be looking to beat Print Track in the show pool. And I think he's beatable on the front end, too. And I think Bourbon Bay and Poppy's Pride certainly look like likely contenders. This horse is interesting, too. This is a Linda Rice horse, and it's got a lot of class, a lot of back class. Hasn't raced in a while. Workouts are just so-so, but that's another one that I would be looking at. And if you find others, it really doesn't matter. In a negative show pool, the biggest thing to do is to beat the big favorite. So with that, let's move on to the NCAA. I want to talk about Gonzaga, and I should have my report up here. Here we go. I'm actually really intrigued by this particular bet. Gonzaga, you'll notice, has a 2.17 bet rating. That tends to be very profitable in and of itself. And the fact that Gonzaga is also, or it could be Gonzaga, I'm not sure. I mispronounce things all the time, so please forgive me. But 2.5-point underdogs versus Connecticut. You'll notice the figures are very, very similar with these two teams. Offensively, obviously, Gonzaga's got a little bit of an edge. They're also pretty good defensively as well. Not as good against defending the three-point shot. That's what the red means there. It's the same concept. Green is good, red is poor. So you'll notice, too, that Gonzaga gives away a fair share of points, but they score a ton of points, too. Let's look at my database, and I want to show you guys why I like this bet so much. So what I did is I just simply put in Gonzaga's bet rating. So you got a 2 or greater, and then I put in the fact that they're underdogs. That's right here, the final line, and they have a positive point differential. We saw that. It's actually very positive, but I just made it positive, and they're favorites. And you notice this is on a neutral floor. Did that as well. And you notice here that in a database that stretches back to 1978, we've got a 59% ATS rate and a 12% profit margin. Not a lot of games that fit this criterion or criteria, but at the same time, it is positive. You also notice that there's a pretty good or pretty significant edge for the under. So my bet here would simply be on Gonzaga with the 2.5 points. But those of you who want to bet the under, I can't really argue that either. So anyway, that sums it up. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to go to my website, databasebetting.com. You can get free reports there, articles, all kinds of stuff. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the videos, and share them with your friends. Hope you guys all have a great day. As you can see, it's another beautiful day in Florida. Have a great day. Talk to you again soon.